It's a wonderful, very creative notion of a single cell that has the capacity when it divides to give a reproduction of itself, as well as one cell going off to become all of the other cells that can make up a tissue, an organ, the whole body. So it has this really unusual characteristic of these two outcomes from a single division. Most cell types, they're either moving their way progressively towards something that's more defined, more specialized, more restricted at what it can do. And they also have the capacity to, they don't have the capacity to essentially renew. And so they're basically moving down a road toward self-destruction. They end up generally having a fairly short half-life. Now, some cells live a long time, but they're not actively dividing, things like a heart cell or a brain cell. Those are generally fairly stable. They don't divide very much, if ever, and they can live for a while. But a cell that has the capacity to generate new cells and yet restore itself, so it's a self-replenishing resource, is a very unusual entity. It's really quite a wonderful concept, actually. What has generated the most controversy is this so-called embryonic stem cell. That comes from a very early stage in development. It is after the first week to 10 days following fertilization in the human. Those cells have unique capability to become virtually any cell type, so they're called pluripotent. Most cells after that time are much more restricted in what they can become. But stem cells of this more restricted nature stay with us throughout life. So we all have stem cells. These are cells that are capable of forming, for example, all of the cells of the blood, so-called blood stem cell. Very important part of active therapy today. We have those in the skin, we have those in the skeleton, we have those in the intestine. We have many of those different adult stem cell types, but they're limited in what they can become. They can't have the ability for, say, a blood stem cell to become a nerve cell, whereas these other pluripotent cells can. Now, though that divide between the pluripotent stem cell or embryonic stem cell and the adult stem cell was something that was thought to be an unbridgeable gap. But over the last 3 years, there's been a revolution in that we now have the ability to take essentially any mature cell type and convert it back into one of these pluripotent cells. So there's been a tremendous shift in thinking and capability in the stem cell arena, because now it seems any cell can be made to become a stem cell. A really phenomenal concept. This idea that you could regenerate tissue is one that could really potentially reverse some of the calculus of how any new medical intervention means essentially incremental additive costs. We're hoping that if we really can accomplish even part of the promise of stem cells, that we'll be able to put back in place tissue that might otherwise have been damaged. If that tissue is capable of sustaining function, what that could do would be to reverse some of the disability. That could reverse some of the dependence on chronic care. If we could improve, for example, the heart function of individuals who have really terrible heart failure. Well, those individuals are bedridden and are highly dependent on healthcare providers, on their family, on medicines. If you can provide some of that function, you can restore some degree of independence. The impact on an individual life would be enormous. If we think about multiplying that in terms of its impact on those care providers, those healthcare needs, the societal implications could be really actually quite dramatic. And so we're hoping that the investment in this area is one that will, in many ways, generate a return that may have the potential of lowering our healthcare costs. If this is something that really offers the chance to reduce disability, that would be, we have to explore that. It's really something that our healthcare system so needs now as a way to try to reduce some of the costs. So I'm actually quite excited that this field, if it can be moved ahead in rapid pace, might actually come to play at a time of really a critical moment in our healthcare delivery system, where clearly we're getting to the point where we almost have an unsustainable level of cost. Well, if we have something that intervenes, it creates greater ability, that people can age but age in a more healthy way, less disability. Well, that has a great deal of impact on our national productivity, healthcare costs, and I think would be an enormously valuable resource. So I may be a bit grandiose, but I'd like to think that this science is one that could really have broad societal implications that would be very positive on many fronts.